Language can be very confusing for me. It takes me longer than the average person to process conversations. And although I'm good at making conversation, it can take me longer than normal to respond. But neurotypical people find language confusing too, and it can lead to some people misperceiving who I am. That is why I would like to explain what is meant when we talk about autism spectrum, ASD. Sometimes when people think of this word, they think of the autism spectrum as being like this, a very linear looking spectrum which gives people the impression that people range from being a little autistic to very autistic. How can you be a little autistic? It's that vague language that I always find confusing. The problem with thinking of the spectrum this way is that a perception of an autistic person becomes linear. You're only a little autistic, Archie. I still don't understand. Can you be less vague? You're able to have a normal conversation with me and act pretty normal. You're not severely autistic. And so you see, if someone thinks you're on a low end of the spectrum, this often happens. Archie, you can handle all of this just fine. You're not that autistic. New situations, too much noise, lack of routine, loads of conversations, smart, tight clothing, don't stim, don't fidget, be more organized, all at once. Act like everyone else. Try to fit in more. Information overload. How can you be tired? Everyone does this every day. You're just being lazy. Wow, you're being so overdramatic. Get over it. Whoa, you're more autistic than I thought. I'm going to relabel you on this spectrum. Since you're very autistic, I don't think you should have a job, just to be safe, you know? And if you're seen as being on the high end of the spectrum, it can lead to some people labeling you as being incapable of doing anything at all. The truth is, though, someone who is neurodiverse in some areas of their brain will also be no different to your average person in other areas of their brain. You see, the autistic spectrum looks something more like this. The spectrum consists of many different traits, or ways in which the brain processes information. Some traits create difficulties in everyday life, hence being diagnosed. Language, motor skills, perception, executive function, sensory filter. But also, many traits are useful in everyday life. Each person with autism will have a set of traits all in different areas of the spectrum. The areas where they don't have a trait will function no differently to a neurotypical brain, but may be affected by circumstances. For example, I'm good at making conversation, language, but I get sensory overload in loud and crowded spaces, which then makes conversation very hard for me. And so another autistic person might be very happy in loud crowds, but find conversation hard in general. You could say I'm just a real party animal. You can see with this spectrum then that not every autistic person has savant skills, or that someone who can't communicate verbally might still understand what you're saying, but just need a different way to communicate, such as sign language. It shows how not every autistic person acts the same way, and we are all capable of varying strengths and weaknesses. Sometimes, if someone is diagnosed as being on the spectrum and informs another person of this, it's so that they can get some understanding and respect for the things that they are unable to do. But it is also so that they can cooperate with the world around them, so that they can be the best in the things that they can do. I hope that in the future people will better understand the term spectrum and continue to respect the differences and similarities we all share in how we experience the world.